Коллеги, я рад вам представить нашего гостя, Дмитрия Харлампиди, который переводит, не знаю, сколько уже, наверное, лет 30?
Yeah, about 30 years, yeah. So I graduated in 1983, and so then I worked at the tourist for 12 years. So since 1997, I've been doing simultaneous, non-stop. Yeah.
It's already over 20 years. It's
97, 2007, 2017, plus two more. It's 22 years, I think.
22 years.
Yeah, that's 22 years.
Quite a bit actually.
Yeah,
Piece,
yeah.
Lump of your life, actually.
Yeah, it's a big lump of my life, big chunk. At that time, I was scared, very much scared, yes, to leave the job because it was reliable. It was an American company, Arthur Andersen, and I got paid good money. Everything was great. I enjoyed it immensely. Yes, and then all of a sudden I realized that they made me do written translation, and written translation was something that I loathed. You know, I hated so much that I could do it a certain period of time, but not all the time. That's why I decided I either just brace myself and go, or I stay there and get sunk, you know, in this written translation.
This is a mind fitness training. This means that we're not exercising our linguistic skills, but we're trying to work out and figure out how our brain works, the brain of the interpreter works in the booth. Because this is the most important thing for the beginning interpreters. They wouldn't know how to collect themselves when working in the booth, how to listen to a speaker simultaneously, speaking, making analysis, thinking what is good, what is bad. This actually forms one of the greatest difficulties. Exactly. Therefore, with your permission, I will ask you a couple of questions, and maybe maybe you will comment.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me begin with something very, very concrete. There is a video right now, and this video is from one of the sittings of the British Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that you will need to interpret this particular speaker on the spur of the moment, meaning there was no one, and suddenly it's just called you, said, "Now, Dima, you will have to be present at the sitting of the British Parliament and render what you hear."
I'll fall in the cracks and disappear. You know?
Right. Therefore,
how can I do it simultaneously if I don't have my earphones and my mic? What?
No, you just listen to this and then give them your advice, meaning what they should be doing in this particular case.
Okay. First I listen, then
you listen. You may just silently interpret to yourself if you think it's necessary, and then you share your experience, because not everyone would know what to do in such a situation.
Okay.
Because a person will simply just get out his wits and immediately.
We'll get confused. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay. Ну что, включаем?
Yeah, I'll listen and then I'll comment.
There's been much speculation over the past week about the possibility of the government bringing before the House a motion on Brexit for another so-called meaningful vote under the statutory framework provided in the EU Withdrawal Act 2018. On the 13th of March, however, the Right Honourable Lady, the member for Wallasey, asked on a point of order at column 394 whether it would be proper for the government to keep bringing the same deal back to the House ad infinitum. I replied that no ruling was necessary at that stage, but that one might be required at some point in the future. Subsequently, members on both sides of the House, and indeed on both sides of the Brexit argument, have expressed their concerns to me about the House being repeatedly asked to pronounce on the same fundamental proposition. The 24th edition of Erskine May states on page 397 that, and I quote, "A motion or an amendment which is the same in substance as a question which has been decided during a session may not be brought forward again during that same session." It goes on to state that, and I quote, "Attempts have been made to evade this rule by raising again, with verbal alterations, the essential portions of motions which have been negatived. Whether the second motion is substantially the same as the first is finally a matter for the judgment of the chair. This convention is very strong and of long standing, dating back to the 2nd of April, 1604.
So your general comment, because
yeah, so I think that so this is a classical example of an extremely loaded text, right? It's extremely convoluted, and although he speaks slowly and on the face of it, you can easily, design it properly and translate it quickly, right? But it's only on the surface, because if you go under, you will understand that the art of translating this piece requires a lot of knowledge, legal knowledge, special phrases. They have to pop up immediately, like column, like ruling, like article, right? And then some convoluted things that you understand what they mean, but you have no ready, counterpart in Russian. That's the problem. That is why, without proper preparation, so if, for example, I had a chance to go through the legal stuff, right? For example, so we would be leaving to St. Petersburg tomorrow, and there would be a legal forum, right? And then I had to learn things like suspended sentence, then the other things related to the legal language.
You mean syntax as well, right?
Yeah, syntax as well, and then you have to have the ready words how to translate them, because if you don't have them and start frantically looking for them, so you'll get behind, and then you will never catch up, and you will just lose the whole line of thought. I'll do my best, yeah, because we know that the authenticity of translation depends on how well you understand and how well you are prepared, and how many times you've done it before, right? So if you've done it many times before, so then it's easy for you, because these things are ready, they're burning in your head, and the bulbs just go off and go on immediately, and then you translate. Yeah, but if it's unprepared text, so then it's difficult, and then you do your best. So if, for example, if I had a chance to learn the text before, then probably the chances that I would translate it properly would be 90% correct, right? But if I started to translate this text now, for example, if they put these earphones and microphone to my mouth, the authenticity of translation would not exceed probably 70%. If you don't immediately get the counterpart of the word conversion, right, it's better just to, when in doubt, leave it out, because if you start just going around frantically, in the back of your mind, so always just coming back to this word, at the same time new words piling up non-stop, and so they're growing. And if it continues any longer, just if you lose 2 seconds, then you will, so that word conversion, for God's sake, let it be, gone forever, because you will have lost much more. That is why if you are not good at it, if you cannot catch it right away, so just forget about it and move forward. Interpreters remember everything what they translate, which is not true. So some say that interpreters don't remember anything what they translate, which is not true too. Yeah, because we usually, for example, I, with my mind and intellect, so waning intellect already, yeah. So I usually I can give the gist. I remember what we talked about, so I can just talk. I can tell you what has happened during the day, right? What they discussed, and what was the main points that were made, what were the main arguments that were made. That I could do, right? But to give exactly, so word for word, close translation, even of a 10-minute piece, I don't think that I would be able to do that, because I have a very short, time memory lapse, right? So it's like that golden fish that goes around the little in a fish tank, and so there's a beautiful monastery in the middle, and the bird and the fish just goes, oh, there is a nice monastery. Oh, there is a nice monastery, or castle underwater.
Dima, as far as I know, he has a very special way of living. For example, he has 2 wonderful girls, and as far as I know, since early childhood, Dima was speaking only English to his daughters, while his wife, Inna, whom I know also very well, we are friends, she speaks only Russian to them. I don't know, well, that's a very curious phenomenon in the family. where the father comes and starts speaking English all the time to his kids, never switching to Russian. Never switching to Russian. Well, he may speak Russian to his wife, naturally, right?
Yeah,
but to the daughter, he speaks only. Do you continue still speaking English?
Yes, yes, I continue to do that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, the question is, so on the one hand, from my point of view, it's a very good practice for yourself, right? Because
absolutely, that's endodidymus. Yes, when we teach, we learn. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that was a unique experience because when I started doing that, so everyone was dissuading me. So don't do that, because your children will not learn Russian and they will never learn English, so they will be in a limbo somewhere in between, and so they will be so nothing. Yeah, and then I found myself at a loss what to say. At the same time, I was afraid that I would not be able to express certain things that I did not know myself because I was not born in the United States or in Britain, so my language is acquired. It's not just given to me by my parents. And that is why it was very difficult. For example, I didn't know how to swear to children in Russian, right? How to scold them, right? How to say change diaper, just how to say you need just to take care of the poopy, for example. So I didn't know just how to say that. That's why I looked up in the dictionary all the time and added. Yes, and the children, because I was afraid that they would not respond to me, but they did, and wonderfully well. And for example, in public, sometimes I cannot speak Russian to them, but at the same time I cannot speak English because I'm afraid that those around me would think that I'm boasting, and I didn't want that. Yes, and once I started speaking Russian, it was one exception, and my younger daughter said, and so, Papa, why are you speaking Russian? So what happened to you?
Yeah, they ask you to stand up because they want to hear you clearly. Therefore, you'll probably stand there because I ask questions, and it's better for us to actually to stand. In that particular case, they will.
If I'm too long in my answers, just please stop me immediately. Yeah, because I.
No. First of all, this question that I asked Dima right now is a very good point for your own behavior as interpreters. Dima, for example, has found for himself an excellent opportunity to practice his English every day. So practically there isn't a single day or half a day when he doesn't speak English. So he speaks English all the time.
I benefit.
I benefit by this a lot. And besides, given that he's talking to his own daughters, and there will be lots of words that maybe you yourself wouldn't know immediately on the spur of the moment. You are actually diving into the dictionary from time to time to acquire new words and phrases and to make your speech more idiomatic. Therefore, for him, it's a very good opportunity. What would you recommend to these wonderful and brilliant girls? Because they also need to have this kind of practice, practicing English, so that when they find themselves in the booth, it will not be a kind of a nonce exercise, but something quite natural. What, from your point of view, where else could they practice their English?
Yeah. So before you go into the booth, which is certainly an exercise of mind and courage in itself, so you should try just to be exposed to the English language as much as possible. How? Right? So now we have this wonderful opportunity of YouTube, right? So we have so many wonderful people who speak English, perfect English, American English, British English. So take John Mearsheimer, take John Paul, take other guys, spiritual leaders, even if they talk gibberish, but still they do it in a... Yesterday I couldn't sleep at night. I woke up in the middle of the night and I found a lecture of a rabbi, of American rabbi, who was...
So he couldn't sleep at night and he found a lecture.
Yeah. And he was talking rubbish about the Judaism, but at the same time he was doing it in such a wonderful, clipped, enunciated, perfect English that I was just absolutely captivated, and I listened from the beginning to the end. So that's the way. You have to be always with it. You have to be always with the English language, right? For example, yesterday I learned 3 new wonderful words. I know how to say «ukontrapupit».
Контрапупить?
Right?
Контрапупить?
Ukontrapupit. You remember Putin said, ukontrapupit. Что мы его будем? Ukontrapupit. So I found this perfect American English translation, which goes like this. So we'll dip 6 him properly, meaning 6 feet under. Understand? We'll dip 6 him properly. Мы его ukontrapupим, right? Or, for example, this is a very topical subject. То есть это очень важная, типичная, важная тема, например, да? And so these are the new lines, the new phrases that I learned last night. And first thing, if you want to remember it, by the way, that's a very important point. You have to share it. You have to share.
Yeah.
Every time, just if you learn something new, you need, because see, if you can't practice with an English speaker, you have just to come, just grab by the sleeve, I know how to say that. I know how to, do you know how to say that? And usually when you attack a person like that, he cannot say that he knows how to say that. So because I'm always in a strong winning, high level position, right? So for example, I say, ты этого не делаешь, и ты этого не делаешь, ну и кто ты после этого? Well, how to say that in English? I say, I know, I say jubilantly. So, and so what does that make you?
What does that make?
Exactly, what does that make you? For example, so you shirk your duties, you don't work well, what do we do for money? And so you promise to be a good husband and a good father to your children. So, and what does that make you? Ну и кто ты после этого, right? So what does that make you? This is great. Or, for example,
and make sure they will forget it, because
write it down. Write it down. It will be on the quiz. Right? Exactly. It will be on the quiz. Write it down, and keep sharing. Keep talking to each other about that. And that's what makes the language so wonderful. Да. Или там с говорящей фамилией Поросюк. Like Lavrov said. So how to say говорящая фамилия Поросюк. Еще один член парламента с говорящей фамилией Поросюк. He said it facetiously, right? Yeah, so how to say? And then I found it aptly named. Поросюк, you see? This is great. This is great. That's how you learn. You just catch these things. And the most important, so once you start looking for a good translation, it comes to you from different sources. You can get it on YouTube. You can get it from your friends. It's like you're getting it from me now, right? Or you can get it from other sources. That's how.
So this means that what Dima said right now is very important, because it appears that your brain works in two modes all the time. So on the one hand, one of your eyes is always on certain challenging situations when you wouldn't know how to say that, and the moment you hear somebody saying something, using a word, immediately the question pops up and just starts beeping, beep,
exactly.
beep, beep in your mind. So, that's interesting. I wouldn't be able to say that. And then for weeks and months, he would be keeping it in his memory, remembering that day that he didn't know how to interpret it correctly. And therefore, one day, for example, when looking through a certain material or listening to some rabbi speaking to someone at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then say,
it pops up.
It pops up. You say,
immediately.
3 months ago, I wouldn't know how to say говорящая фамилия Поросюк, right?
Exactly.
And so it pops up immediately.
And then you have to write it down. If you have not written it down, it never existed. Never existed, because usually then you just make mistakes, because you think it's very easy, because when you hear it for the first time, just you get it fixed in your head and you think you remember it, but you don't. Yeah, that is why you need to try to write it down, go back to it several times, and then it's there. Yeah.
I have an idea. I don't know what you think about that. Most translators and interpreters at the beginning of their career, they think that their brain is something that they can command, that can use and command. No. The moment I stopped doing that, I felt extremely relieved, first of all, and secondly, extremely very, very comfortable. The only thing that I'm doing, for example, I'm simply just stuffing my brain with all sorts of information, enjoying the words and phrases and pairs of words and so on and so forth.
No, I do the same.
And I don't care, actually, whether right now I can remember the words заусеницы or
exactly right. Something else.
Или еще
yes, or levada для тренировки лошадей, which I learned only yesterday. It's a paddock. Yeah, I forgot this word and I had to look it up. Yeah.
Therefore, well, I don't know how you feel about this, but you will share with me right now. Well, I stopped this guessing game of trying to translate a word that appears out of nowhere. Out of context, anyway. And when people simply come up to me and say, what is the Russian to harness? К черту с вашим harness. Откуда я знаю, как переводят слово harness?
That's what horses wear, reluctantly. Yeah.
Или, я вам просто сказать, I will give you a very, very simple example. Not long ago in the BBC, there was reporting about these debates between Zelensky and Poroshenko.
Right.
And the BBC reporter said, and I will not tell you what he said, but I'll ask you first.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how to translate the word Bab? B-A-R-B.
Barb — это шило, загвоздка, ship, barb.
А что такое trade?
Trade — это характерная черта чего-либо.
А что такое to trade barbs?
Это значит это finger pointing, so when they insult each other in public. And they do it in a kind of bad way. They try to really insult each other. Yeah.
Right. So when you come across such stuff somewhere where you're reading, you immediately notice such things. They say Poroshenko and Zelensky traded barbs. Traded barbs. And at that moment, your brain should work as a flashing lamp.
Exactly, flashing lamp. I think that your teacher is doing the same thing, because when you go into the simultaneous translation, you change your identity. You abandon yourself to the flow of events that you cannot predict, and you kind of plunge into it. You dive into it, right? And then you should not stop. And even if there is nothing to say, you continue clinging on the words and going forward and forward and forward, never stopping, trying just to make sense of this long, sometimes senseless, pronouncements. And that's the way I do it. Yeah, because some translators do it differently. So they try to make sense of what they are translating, and having made sense of what they're translating, they start to translate. And then the translation looks smoother, looks nicer, but is less authentic. That's the way I see it. And I think just like Marklen, so I'm doing it like this. I try to translate whatever I hear as fast as possible, right? And let them figure out what that means. So several times I translated Mr. Chernomyrdin, and so he never made any sense, right? And I didn't make any sense, right? And they were just looking back, and they thought that this guy's translator's guy, his mind is lost. You see, yeah, that he went completely nuts, because what he's talking about is not making any sense. Yeah, but I was not trying to make sense of something that did not make any sense, right? But eventually, so he was kind of impressionist, because if there's all these senseless things, if you put together and look at them from a distance, so then they start making sense, right? And then people finally understand.
Do you do anything to develop your brain additionally? Maybe some memory tests, or I don't know,
No.
crossword puzzles and so on and so forth. Do you do it at all in general?
I'm not good at it, unfortunately. Yeah, no. I'm bad at crossword puzzles, and I just read. I listen, I read, and I practice. That's the only way to do it, to keep yourself in shape. Yeah, but it's growing more difficult now to keep myself in shape, because I'm not getting any younger, and I feel that there is nothing like a young brain. So it's so much stronger, so much more resilient.
Enjoy it right now.
Enjoy it while you have it. Enjoy it while you have it, because I'm beginning to feel it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, another concern that the beginning interpreters have is that they will quickly forget what the speaker was saying. We could actually just give them some kind of a relief and comfort, saying that not even experienced interpreters and translators can remember and keep for a long time in their memory what the speaker just now said.
Yeah, exactly.
Very often, for example, I know that conference interpreters are not always very good at consecutive interpreting.
Absolutely. I'm a lousy consecutive interpreter. So my attention span and capability to keep my things in my head and store them in my head so has always been limited, and that is why I avoided as much as I could consecutive translation. But certainly, since I was rather a greedy guy, so I wanted money, so I went for it. But that's why, if the sentence was short, for example, negotiations, he says the sentence, I translate the sentence, he says, and then it goes quite fast, because I almost fall into this standard type of simultaneous interpretation, and that I do well. But if I have to stand on the stage, and so this guy just is saying 10 sentences, in a row, and then expects me to repeat it word for word, I don't have that kind of brain. I have a friend of mine, who can remember pages, literally pages of text, having listened to them only once. It's just amazing. So this guy keeps talking, and this guy just keeps looking like this, and then when his time comes, he opens up and just gives word for word. It's just amazing how well he does it. Yeah, but I'm not that kind of guy.
So conference interpreting is not necessarily just a guessing game or a memory game. The conference interpreting is a slightly different sort of exercise. It's an exercise of an immediate immediate identification of sense on the spur of the moment. Not words, but sense. We see how the speaker quickly, on the spur of the moment, right now, makes sense of those limited number of elements that he or she has at his or her disposal, and then we quickly render by giving a gist of what the person is doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Today we're having a number of exercises to develop our brain, our thinking abilities, because this is mind fitness. Mm-hmm. And I would ask you now to see to the next stage, which we call Das Glasperlenspiel, the game of beats.
Is that German?
It's English.
Yeah.
But the idea is the following: the game master, Milena, she's going to present a certain subject to the audience right now. Mm-hmm. The audience know nothing about the speakers, know nothing about the arguments, the debates, the interviews. They know nothing about that. They're absolutely in the dark about that thing.
Okay.
Milena's task consists now in provoking the members of the game to speak, to express their idea about questions that she would be asking, about some sort of a hints that she's making. And the moment some of the speakers, guesses a thought or an idea that was pronounced in the potential interview, she will immediately just tell him the bead. Bead is a sort of an award.
A bead, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bead is
a...
Нет, не beat.
A bit. Tidbit, yeah? Вкуснятина.
Нет, это жемчужинка.
Okay, a bead, like B-E-A-D. Bead, yeah, got it, yeah.
So she actually distributes beads to all those people who managed to guess the idea that was in the interview. Right. And if somebody guesses not only the words, but also not only the thoughts, but also the words, that person gets the double bead.
Double bead.
Bead.
Okay, good.
And after some time, about 15 or 20 minutes, some people in the group have a certain number of beads already. And then she says, she sees who has the greatest number of beads. Mm-hmm. And these people become the winners of the game for the time being. At the second stage, we work on the strings. Mm-hmm. The strings meaning those people who made the beads, they need to work out the logic of what was there on the screen. And then after discussing this, people get strings and beads, and then without actually preparing for that interview, but with the help of the game master, they will be already in the context. Mm-hmm. They come up to this screen and they start interpreting offhand.
Okay.
But the first person to interpret will be Milena herself. We shall see how she manages, and I would be interested to see how you would comment on her interpreting, and maybe.
Okay. I'm already confused. Yeah. Behold, where are those beads and strings?
But the idea of the game.
Do we have a treasure trove of those?
No, the idea of the game is to create the atmosphere of prediction, because because we are sure that everybody knows everything, and there are no new original ideas. Therefore, generally speaking, if we have a very good game master, the game master would know how to guide people in the room, leading them to the right shape of the final dialogue that will be on the screen. Right. And the moment somebody becomes particularly clever in guessing the whole monologue that will be on the screen, that person definitely, because of his prediction skills, can interpret quite easily.
Right. By the way, prediction, if I may interject, prediction skills, I call it the running wild boar, бегущий кабан, right? Because when you try to shoot a бегущий кабан, right, you're moving your sights onto this wild boar, but he's running like hell because he doesn't want to give up his life easy, right? And that is why you have to know just how far ahead you need to shift your sights so that by the time the bullet strikes the place where the wild boar would have been will have been in 2 seconds, right? So, and that's the power of prediction, yeah. And that is why, for example, I always say that if a speaker, does not make sense and his arguments are poor, if the logic and the string of events is not properly represented, right? So there is no this wild boar running because you don't know how to shift the sights in front of the wild boar to hit him in the heart. That's how I see it. Prediction.
So I would be interested, because this is a relatively new exercise that I have invented myself. So first of all, you will comment on Milena's ability to be a game master, whether she is clever in actually forming this prediction and shape of the dialogue by asking them questions, because there are so many people here sitting. And then you can also participate yourself, by the way, in this monologue.
I'd rather keep a low profile. Sit tight like a bed bug. Okay.
Упражнение «Игра в бисер». Das Glasperlenspiel. Мы, конечно, заимствовали название у Германа Гессе, название известного его романа, но суть упражнения, мне кажется, просто прекрасна, потому что позволяет развивать одновременно память, способность концентрации, обобщение, логику, целый спектр возможностей, которые синхронному переводчику просто крайне необходимы. Итак, в чем суть игры? Она очень похожа на инструктаж. То же самое, что делал инструктор у нас, который собирал всю ключевую информацию о каком-то виде, который нужно было потом переводить. Только в игре в бисер мастер игры, так называемый game master, тот человек, который ведет игру, он не рассказывает, о чем сюжет. Вообще не рассказывает. Его задача заключается в том, чтобы спровоцировать аудиторию рассуждать так, как рассуждают люди в том ролике, который позже им придется переводить. То есть задача его заключается в том, чтобы вопросами, подсказками, намеками заставить людей выдавать те же самые мысли, которые озвучены в видеоролике, который пока никто не видел. Если он понимает, что человек близок к ответу на вопрос, к правильному, он как бы дополнительными, наводящими вопросами выводит его на ту же самую мысль, на те же самые рассуждения. Мастер игры внимательно следит за тем, как люди отвечают на его вопросы и реагируют на его подсказки. Если кому-то удается выдать не только мысль, но и само слово, он получает какое-то вознаграждение от мастера игры. Тот, кто угадал мысль, получает pearl, жемчужину. Тот, кто угадал не просто мысль, а и слово, получает double pearl. Таким образом, в течение минут 20 идет обсуждение тем, казалось бы, очень абстрактных, но мастер игры внимательно следит, чтобы логика сохранялась и участники не скатывались в какие-то побочные другие темы для разговора. Итак, Game Master. Лена, пожалуйста.
So, I'll start with a simple question. What is the thing that you use every day?
Quite a lot of things.
Telephone. Yes. Telephone. Yes, your phones. What else?
Arms, legs, other parts of the body.
Develop this thought on
maybe the language then, no? The language we every day.
Well, gadgets.
Headphones.
And the next question, and Asha has guessed it already, what else do you use every day, which is not a thing, but a phenomenon?
The language.
Language. So, why do you think I asked you about both language and the phones?
Well,
is there any connection?
Language is something which helps us to communicate, and as we know, phones have a great influence on the way we are communicating, because they can make it possible they connect people from different cities, different countries, and we know that there is, if we're talking about some messengers, there is a term secondary orality, which means that our written speech became like an oral one.
And you said that there is the influence on language by phones. Can you speak on it a bit, or anybody else? What is this influence? Briefly.
When we communicate with friends, we need to talk fastly, and we need to express our thoughts in a rapid way. Maybe it's connected with slang, For example, we don't say hello, we say hi, but we often reduce the words and use some smiles, stickers, and so on instead of words.
Rita, Aisha, Alona, Alla, you have pearls.
So distributing pearls.
Pearls, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Can you name the technologies of the past that also influenced language? So now we have our phones, computers, the internet, right? And what was in the past?
Well, some letters maybe.
Radio.
Radio. Yes, radio.
Maybe it began with type machine.
Yes.
Printing.
Printing. Well done. Printing. Radio. What else?
Telephone. Letters.
Telephone.
Telegram.
Television. And there is a word for both television and radio. What's that?
Media.
No.
Give a hint.
Money and recognition.
Okay, we can do it on Instagram.
Good hint.
The same. Yes. Broadcasting. Yes, broadcasting for TV and radio. Jean, you have a pearl. Okay. We named technologies that influenced. Can you name all of them in the way they arrived?
Letters, then printing.
Printing.
Then what was?
Well, radio.
Broadcast.
After printing. Telephone.
Then radio. Then television.
Then
the
broadcasting.
Internet.
Yes, and that. Yes, right. And what does change in the language in each part we've named?
What changed?
What changed? Yes.
Well, probably it was speak about like phones and such things. Probably a person should think about the proper intonation to use it, because if we communicate, like if we're having an eye contact, it's much more. It's easier to do.
So intonation is a good word, but there is. Can you develop this thought?
About intonation?
Yes, about intonation.
Well,
so intonation changes.
I assume the question was how do these technological innovations affect the language? Was there anything? Was it exactly that one word that you wanted to say?
Well, yes.
Maybe.
Yes, you can.
Also, with technical progress, some neologisms appeared, and the language changed a little bit.
So we feel that we need to speak in a certain way, right? Depending on the situation, and what is it? What is this way? What's the word?
Ethics?
No, it's linguistical term.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
We feel like we need to speak in a certain way in different situations, and what is this way? The linguistical term.
Is it about the intonation on the words?
Intonation, well, words as well. Register. It's a synonym to register, I would
Context
say.
maybe or something like that.
Registering style or
style? Yes. You have a pearl. So, consequently, what does it mean?
The style of our speech is being changed by all these technologies.
Yes.
And, well, I think I can remind again about the secondary reality and the fact that our oral speech and written speech are now in a kind of mixture, because there is a tendency, for instance, well, in Russia at least, to yes, and to speak as we write. For instance, well, like, I don't know, but we all do it.
Well, yeah, like short conversations and social.
The next question. could there be any expectations from the arrival of new technologies?
In terms of what?
You mean like the influence again on the
In
language?
terms of society.
What was the question?
Okay, what were people's fears? When telephone arrived, for example.
That we all stop talking in
Yes,
real life.
yes,
Mm.
yes, I don't know as well.
Maybe we are starting to forget how can we talk to each other.
Yes, how to communicate in
Some
real
people
life.
prefer to text each other rather than speak, because it takes more moral, intellectual power just to speak.
The language changed so much that we, for example, teenagers often use some slang in their real
We'll
life.
discuss it a little bit later.
Okay.
No, you get the point. These.
Does she get the pearl?
Yes, of course.
So she gets the pearl for the right guess, right?
Yes.
So she was super predictive.
Yes.
Meaning she predicted the very end of the conversation, which is great.
Like these days, there is a tendency that people usually prefer to meet in social media rather than in face to face. They just can't approach people, talk to strangers.
Okay. Then let's move on to discussing the internet. As the technology that influences us and our language most importantly now. Okay, what social networking services do you use?
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Yes. And is there any difference in the style of language you use in different media?
Yes, there are some abbreviations or the restriction in a number of words, like in Twitter, for example, there are this 140 words or something. You have to
You send formal mail, and
Yes,
when you
right.
connection with your friend in VK or Instagram, you send a briefly message such as haha, lol, etc.
And we use different social media when you're talking to different people. For example, I think nobody of us use mail when none of us use mail when we want to chat with our friends because it is long.
It's too formal.
Yes, and it is not.
We communicate with the same people in different ways. So, for instance, when I'm writing to somebody on email, I'm always add something like с уважением, etc. But when I do it on some other messenger or network, I wouldn't probably do that.
And when we chat in VK, we often use some proper mistakes.
Yes.
When we talk to
Actually, you can also send some stickers and like these emoji things that are really like.
Which you
And
wouldn't send
they
through
have
email, for
Yes,
example, to your
yes.
teacher. Okay, Aisha, Rita, and Ala, you have. So each of these resources, internet resources, have their own distinctive styles of English and of any language, of course. We've named a lot of services, networking services, but the speaker, he takes Twitter as an example. So let's discuss Twitter. Who does use Twitter?
Me.
Who uses Twitter?
Who uses Twitter? Not so
I tried,
many
but
people. Okay, could you describe what it is briefly to those of us who briefly?
It's a social network where you could write about your feelings or your the things that you do every day or your thoughts, but you have to make it in 140 words.
And
200. It's more.
do you write it for one person or to the whole world?
To the whole world.
Yes. Okay.
Are you figuring out the logic Do you understand what the talk is about in general?
General.
Yes.
Right?
And when you are about to write a tweet, please describe what you see on your screens. You can open it.
So you can see when I text the tweet, the tweet, so I see the dark space and one white square where I text, and I see my text.
And
the number of symbols you...
Yes, and just before you start to take, do you see anything in this black square?
They ask me.
Yes, so there is a question, right? Now it is what's new. And when did you start using Twitter?
2011.
What was the question then? Do you remember?
There was no questions. There was утверждение.
Statement.
Statement, yeah. Что произошло?
Yes. What's happening? So now it is what's new. Then in 2009, it was what's happening. And in 2006, when it just arrived, the question was, "What are you doing?" So
the number of letters they have reduced.
Well, because the shorter the message is, the better you can.
Because people tend to just briefly read it and not just.
And well, do you think this question, the formulation of this question, matter?
Oh yeah, it's shorter again. So what
sense
is happening
also.
and like what's new? Hey, could you write something down here?
So does it reflect on the tweet? Does this question, and the speaker names it prompt. Well, I've been thinking how to translate it, and I think we can say вопрос-подсказка or something like that.
You mean prompt?
Наводящий вопрос, yes. Well, prompt is itself подсказка, but it is a question. So, наводящий вопрос, вопрос-подсказка.
So then there was the question, "What are you doing?" And it the person starts to think what he done, and he thinks about actions. Yeah. But when they just ask what's new, you just remember everything, the whole spectrum of your.
What kind of pronouns you use when the question is "What are you doing?" and when the question is "What's new?"
Well, in the second situation, the subject is omitted. It's just what is happening around you.
Omitted, or it can be.
Well, I meant in the question. It is
first person pronoun, second person pronoun, or third person pronoun. In case of what's happening.
I think it would be the third person pronoun.
Yes, the third person pronoun. And what are you doing is...
Well, you're describing like yourself.
Yes.
I'm doing this
question. Why should I share it? Actually, what I'm doing.
What are the bad sides of using internet? How it reflects on our language, I mean.
Like in communication skills.
We make
the bad sides.
We usually make a grammar mistake, and
sometimes on purpose, right?
But sometimes it is our неаккуратность.
Yes, and this is what Rita was talking about. So we make the words shorter, right?
Ну, как будет неаккуратность? Сказали неаккуратность и выкинули его. Я не уверен, что это inaccuracy. Это вот та самая ситуация, про которую, Дима говорил. So you come across a word that you don't know how to render in different language, and you actually stop there. You stop and you start thinking, because if you pass by, then you will simply actually do the same with all other words in all other situations. Therefore, you need to stop here and collectively find the best way Okay, неаккуратно.
Not really concentrated on the thing.
That's too long. Okay, it's just what other variants you would find here?
Carelessly.
Huh? Carelessly? In a careless manner? That's not bad. Sluttering, yes. Okay. More ideas? There are 5 synonyms, right? So in this particular case. So that's exactly. Imagine somebody said неаккуратно. So
uncluttered, cluttered, yes. Clear mind, uncluttered, as opposed to cluttered mind. Yeah.
Thoughtless.
Thoughtlessly, also possible.
Thoughtlessly,
yes.
yeah.
Well, not bad. That's an idea. Thoughtlessly.
Incorrect.
I'm not quite sure about unconsciously because she's speaking about the internet, and the idea is that the internet makes you less careful, right, about what you are saying, less responsible for what you are saying. So when you are saying неаккуратно, probably she meant exactly that you do not, when you are typing, when you are texting to someone, you do not think about commas and other punctuation marks. You're not thinking about orthography. You allow yourself actually to do the typos actually, and hoping that people will forgive you for that. So that's what she meant. There was a carelessness, lack of precision, lack of self-discipline. Right, so all these things will work in this particular situation. And never use a Russian word. It's better to use to give your idea descriptively in all sorts of ways, but never switch to Russian.
And what's the name for a word which has been shortened?
Abbreviation.
Abbreviation, yes. What abbreviations do you know?
LOL.
Yes, the most common.
OMG.
For you can be used like with the number 4 and then you just one letter.
And for example, for hate, we can write H and
yes,
8.
You too is like you and number 2 and people.
Okay. What are the good sides of it?
You can communicate with more people.
Yes.
Every time.
It is a faster method for communication with
Yes.
And if you're not really good at dealing with people, it really can help you, yeah. Because, well, it really matters because if you don't like speaking using your phone, for you it will be rather more convenient to talk to a person using it.
Well, when you chat in some social networks, you can pause, you can go and do something.
Yes.
Yeah, actually now there's an ability to send not only letters but this in VK sounds and voices. So that's it's like almost speaking on the phone.
Yes.
But still.
And I think there is another good side of it because, for instance, you can study the features of some vernaculars, some local pronunciations, etc. You have this connection with different parts of the area where your studying language is used.
So, will you agree with me if I say the young people of today are reading the English language and whatever language, they only destroy it with these horrible abbreviations, and if it goes on, we'll be left with nothing.
But we have to accept that that's language. It still will be developed.
Yes,
there is nothing we can do.
It's one stage of it.
Yeah,
it's development.
But I think it is important for us as philologists to prevent our language to. We can use some abbreviations and so on in social media, but we shouldn't forget about the real literature language.
So if you're writing an essay, for example, for your studies, will you use abbreviations there? Of course not. Of course not.
But if you do not spread pearls, they will not grasp the logic. You understand? Because this will turn into general discussion, right?
Nobody deserves any pearls. Yeah, so there are lots of deserving people. Yes, you need to distribute pearls freely and lavishly.
you got pearls.
No, they build an idea the moment you give you give them a pearl.
Sorry.
Because if you just wait till every time the person guesses, he or she guesses the right turn of the conversation on the screen. If you are waiting till the end, they wouldn't know what was actually said. Therefore, these strings of pearls is very important.
For how many years has the internet existed? Try to guess.
25.
Yes, for 28 years. So it became like publicly accessible 28 years ago. So Zhenya, you have a pearl.
I think she deserves to.
Yes.
Double pearl.
You have a double pearl. And is it much?
No, not at all.
Yes.
Snezhana. Enrique.
Much.
And well, do you think the internet has affected the basics of language so that we wouldn't understand people who were speaking 20 years ago?
No.
Of course,
definitely.
Allah and Rita.
I think everyone hopes that it will never happen.
Well, we still understand the books and the films of the 20th century.
And
in the 19th.
And what do you think? What's the ratio of the abbreviations in the text to the whole text?
But that's again depends on the style.
Well, yes, of
average
course.
of time.
Well, in general, in average.
Well, I suppose it will be rather complicated to understand the text which is packed full of all these abbreviations. So, well, maybe like 50-50. It should be kind of a mixture of.
50% of abbreviations in your text.
It's
very
too much.
difficult to read.
Yes.
Well, that depends on the
10%
text
maybe.
again and on the idea that is.
Every second word is abbreviation. Can you imagine it? Just
Could you repeat?
10% maybe.
Something. Yeah, but I was.
Wait.
10%. Yeah.
Can I add something? Because that depends again on the text. If you write a message, like to your friend, and you use like for you, to this, like for, and all these kind of abbreviations.
If we consider the this ways like 4 is the number as abbreviation. Yes, probably then.
So you see that depends on the situation. So that.
Reasonable.
That doesn't connect with the videos.
All spells have been spread. Okay. Now maybe somebody would dare to give a string so that you would understand how it all went on the screen.
Oh, I can name.
Please,
people,
the winners.
The winners: Rita, Ася, Zhenya, Snezhana, Alla.
And who is the top winner?
Alla.
Alla is the top winner. Okay.
По окончании мастер проверяет, у кого из игроков наибольшее количество жемчужин. Pearls. Человек, угадавший наибольшее количество мыслей, идей и сумел таким образом сложить наиболее цельную картину того, о чем будет данный ролик. Дальше переходим ко второй части игры. Вторая часть игры — это strings. Кто-то, по особенности, преимущественно те, у кого наибольшее количество жемчужин оказалось, должен сложить эти жемчужины в правильную логическую конструкцию. Опять-таки, с помощью подсказок, намеков, каких-то ассоциативных слов, которые произносят ведущие игры, его участники могут сложить в единую цепочку, в единую нить ту логику, которая была там же на экране.
Any of you, please give the links or try to tell the.
To restore
restore
the logic of the dialogue or the interview, right? That is on the screen.
Well, probably he started with, I suppose he should start with a brief history of all this technology.
Yes.
And he will probably talk about the influence on language, firstly in generally, then the influence on style. That style now depends on the network you use, on the messenger you use. And then he probably plunged deeper into this theme of style, and the important feature of the style of social networks is abbreviations.
If something is missing, you immediately ask somebody else actually to fill up the gap. If you think that the logic was not exactly as Ali is presenting right now.
Well, nothing's missing.
So she is actually reproducing exactly the logic of the conversation that was on the screen, as if she actually saw it, right?
Yes.
That's interesting.
And then I think he will talk about the history of language development, or some future predicts, and maybe about people who concerns that the language will be changed too much, or that the language is in a dangerous position.
This idea of prediction there is in the text, but not in that place.
Probably it is in the beginning where he started the history. Then no.
The end.
That's the thing about influence.
Well, prediction. Our possibility to predict the future of language.
That will be in the end.
In the end.
And maybe
Milena mentioned the social network, the Twitter. I think it was described more in detail,
yes.
like the history of Twitter. Sorry, about these questions and
the way they changed.
Right.
And the way the interface of such social networks influence the way we write something about, like what is happening and what's new, all these things we discussed.
The influence of the messenger on the style and on the content too.
That's correct.
So
yes, and I'd like to give you the words used in the video. While talking about printing, he mentions newspapers and such words, headlines, well, you know, заголовки, cartoons, карикатуры, captions, подписи, I translate as подписи, and editorials, передовые статьи о редакционной статьи.
Could you repeat the word for подписи?
Captions. Also, he uses this phrase, prophets of doom. What do you think it is?
Prophets of what?
Doom.
prophets of doom.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Harbingers of death. Yeah.
Yes.
Or prophets of doom.
5 sins immediately. Not just prophets of doom, but harbingers of
Anybody
death.
knows the word doom?
It's like the fate, the bad fate.
Yes. Well, something to, in which context do you think he uses this word?
Maybe about the future of the language and about
technologies.
Yes,
people who
both about the future and about the way the technologies in the past influenced language. So, and how would you translate it? Prophets of doom. That's
context. It's
Начните с грубого. Начните прямо с грубого, а там дальше чуть-чуть его доведете до совершенства. Окей? Ну, Женя, что?
Just a second.
Окей. Настя. Как будет профит of doom? Предвестники конца.
well, yes, but the style used in the video is not that literal.
It's not that high.
Yes.
Okay, so you need to bring down, to bring down предвестники конца to something.
can I give?
In what context?
Yes, the context.
So some people think that internet is having only bad influence on language, so they are prophets of doom.
Ah, okay.
Well, yeah, I think again the style is not. Yes, I think люди настроены на неудачу, о скептики.
Скептики. Но это вам же нужна короткая фраза. Ее же невозможно там. Люди настроены на неудачу.
The shortest is скептики. No, not in that meaning. Well, I think it can also be used, pessimistic.
Пессимисты rather pessimistic than skeptical.
Yeah, okay. No. Okay, let's take pessimistic, Zhenya. Well done. And I've prepared small cards for you with the dates of arrival of new technologies. They will help you to interpret. So, Snezhana, can you... No, please. Well, I have only 9 or so.
In addition to that, because I see that Milena is coming to an end, we also need tags. What sort of tags? We need words that will actually give us the broader context. Milena, I think we need to just at the last stage, we need to figure out how many tags would there be in the film that you're going to show right now, because it is that through these tags that people will recognize the bigger context or the bigger logical block. Because if they do not identify these tags, they wouldn't be able to predict how it will logically develop.
So I should give the tags?
No, they had already pearls, right? Maybe they can guess the pearl. Maybe they can guess what the tags are.
What are the tags of the beginning?
The history?
Yes, but
well, the name.
He doesn't mention the word history, but in the sense of
tag is the word. Tag is the word.
Telephone,
or maybe technologies that
technologies influence. What else?
Well, telephone. All these names.
Allah said that he will talk about history of these moments in history when these technological when these technologies arrived. So. Not events, but well, the names of these or periods. Printing,
telephone.
Yes, telephone.
Broadcasting, the internet resources.
Internet, yes. Then about language, style, influence again.
Development.
Well, a little bit later. Now he talks about language.
And you also mentioned this 28 years of using the internet.
It will be at the end.
And the very, very final stage of this course is making the Russian gist, the gist in Russian. But this should be done very quickly, very dynamically, with no pauses, no hesitation. В конечном итоге кто-то из участников должен попробовать сделать из этого единую нить повествования на русском языке, потому что придется переводить. И сделать это так гладко, как будто бы он сам присутствовал при том диалоге, который будет на экране, будет показан на экране. Как правило, ребята с этим очень хорошо справляются. Мастер игры — это, конечно, человек, который прекрасно умеет вести беседу, диалог, и подмечать, в правильную сторону или не в правильную сторону движется полотно повествования. Таким образом, самые необычные, тайные, скрытые способности, возможности человека к ассоциативному мышлению, к размышлению о темах, которые близко подходят к тому, что сейчас говорится, развивая в себе способность мыслить наперед, мыслить в боковых аллеях, мыслить ассоциативно. Все эти способности как на ладони оказываются во время игры. И именно эта способность предвосхищать, предсказывать контекст помогает человеку чувствовать себя довольно-таки свободно в кабине, предсказывая то, как обычно оратор
выступает и в какую сторону он может двинуться. По завершению этого диалога сам оратор, а также те, кто участвовал, наилучшие из них, подходят к экрану, и начинается синхронный перевод того сюжета, который они никогда не видели. Они не видели ни оратора, никогда не знакомы с ним, не знают его имени, но начинают сходу переводить, опираясь на те логические рассуждения, на ту логику, на те мысли, которые обсуждались в процессе игры.
Milena, maybe you would suggest somebody in this group would be capable of doing that. Maybe we'll ask Alena, she was...
Yes, I think they will be capable of doing that.
But somebody should make a gist. A gist in Russian, because after all you will be... You haven't finished
in
it.
English, yes. So the part about language is not too long. Then Twitter, yes, as Snezhana said. What are the tags for Twitter? The word that I... Prompt.
Question.
Prompt. This question, what's new?
It's the name of the question. Prompt.
It's the word he used. Well, I don't know what it is. If there is such term, I don't know. Well, he says prompt. It's like question. That question.
And amount of words.
Yes, the number of words. Yes, and be prepared. There are a lot of like digits, numbers in this text, but you have cards, so you will be capable of doing that. Okay. Yes, all for Twitter, and then at the end,
Danger and
the dangers, predictions,
Fears.
well, fears, yes, and here hesitations,
Good or bad?
that tricky phrase, prophets of doom, yes, and he will mention to people. One of them is John Humphreys. He's a famous figure. He runs a morning show in Britain, and the other is Stephen Fry. So Stephen Fry will be mentioned in the context of Twitter. He posted something, and John Humphreys at the end.
And this post will be like an example of the...
Oh yes, like an example. So that's all, and just in Russian.
Just in Russian, very smooth, very quickly, as if you knew what the subject is about. Okay, Rita, please.
Вначале спикер говорит о некоторых технологиях, поменявших наши способы коммуникации. Он перечисляет, среди прочего, печатание, телефон, радио, интернет, телевидение и социальные сети. Далее он переходит к взаимосвязи языка и этих нововведений, и то, как эти нововведения влияют на язык. Потом он переходит к именно влиянию социальных сетей на язык и приводит пример Twitter, подробно рассматривает его историю, как он менялся, как менялся, как сказать, наводящий вопрос, просто вот вопрос, который вопрос-подсказка, который задавался перед постом в Твиттере, и как это влияло на количество слов, которые, или не как это влияло, просто...
Не на количество слов, а на то, что, собственно, ты...
на содержание.
На содержание,
подача, да, вот местоимение, опять же, то есть, в принципе, смысл.
Ну да.
На содержание твоего текста.
Да, на содержание этого твита. И далее он переходит к перечислению плюсов и минусов такого влияния на язык, и также говорит об опасности их, и о том, что все-таки есть какие-то положительные стороны, и о том, что, скорее всего, люди все равно понимают обычную литературную речь, и, скорее всего, эти опасности не слишком оправданные.
Хочу только исправить, он не перечисляет как бы плюсы и минусы, он сразу переходит к тому, что многие люди считают, что интернет оказывает на язык слишком негативное воздействие, и он пытается это оспорить, вот можно так сказать. Правильно? Да.
Все верно?
Молодец, да.
Все верно?
Рита победитель, Алла победитель. Так, значит, so we prepare for the interpreting right now. Значит, мы сейчас практически закончили играть в игру в бисер. И финальный этап сейчас мы просто посмотрим, ну, что называется, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Да? То есть нужно будет посмотреть, действительно ли игравшие справятся с реальным текстом, который будет на экране. Да.
Кое-что забыла упомянуть, можно я сейчас?
Да.
What are the things we can do on TV or radio? Just name them.
Other from what?
Other from on other places. So, what are the programs which are special for TV and radio?
Maybe some performance?
Listening.
Listening.
The process, you mean, or the
No,
name of this?
The kinds of activities.
Well, in accordance with the TV, like movies, cartoons, TV series, and all that.
Well, yes.
Maybe.
Yes. What else? What else?
Educate.
Again.
Educate. Get to
Okay.
know what's happening in the world.
Connection
So,
with
what's happening? News.
Connection with viewers, for example, some competitions and so on.
What about sports? What is the main language activity used in sports programs?
This, I don't know how to say it in English. Comments?
Yes, sports
Reporting.
Reporting, right.
Well, he says sports commentary.
Commentary.
Yes. What else? What else? We try to know it almost every day. News and weather.
But we don't know where it happened, actually. You said it, but because we've managed already to build the strings, and you know every pearl, we don't know where this pearl will go to.
But we can guess.
Yeah,
When
they do know it.
Because
about radio in
So, Milena, you're the first. You come
So
here, you
I
start.
have to.
No.
And just a couple of words about the speaker. It's David Crystal, a famous British linguist. I hope you know about him. So he speaks to the Serbian students.
Когда появляются новые технологии, они влияют на язык. Так и должно быть. И это можно подтвердить примерами из прошлого. Давайте вспомним эти примеры. Книгопечатание появляется в 15 веке, и вследствие этого появляются новые разновидности английского языка. Это относится к любому языку, но мы сейчас говорим об английском. Подумайте о газете, такой, как вы ее себе представляете, с ее заголовками, карикатурами, надписями и статьями. И в какое-то время этого просто не было. Перейдем к 19 веку, когда появляется телефон. И знаете, когда телефон только появился, люди не знали, как им пользоваться, они не знали, что говорить. Когда они брали трубку, они буквально кричали и говорили: «Кто там? Вы здесь?» и так далее. Сегодня мы просто говорим «алло» или диктуем номер. И люди считали, что телефон станет несчастьем для общества, потому что они думали, что люди перестанут выходить из дома и общаться с кем-либо вживую. Но, конечно, этого не произошло. Когда телерадиовещание появилось в 20-х годах 20 века, люди также думали, что это будет несчастьем для общества. И людей поразила эта новая система взаимодействия с информацией. Раньше такого не было. И это также повлияло на язык. Подумайте о тех вещах, которые мы можем делать на телевизоре и на радио. Например, спортивный комментарий, футбольный комментарий. Раньше этого просто не было. Появилось несколько десятилетий назад. Прогноз погоды, новости, разговорные шоу. Все это существует именно благодаря телерадиовещанию. Сейчас эти функции возложены на интернет. Знаете, он появляется не так давно. И многие из вас, ребят, здесь даже не помнят жизни без интернета. А те, конечно, кто постарше, хорошо помнят. те, кто родился раньше 90-х годов. Всемирная сеть появляется в 91 году всего лишь. И когда вы смогли воспользоваться Гуглом? В 91 году. Именно тогда он появился. Вопрос к тем, кто постарше. Когда мы смогли воспользоваться электронной почтой? В 90-х годах. Сообщения на мобильных телефонах, когда они появились? В 2000-х годах. Мгновенные сообщения тоже в начале 2000-х. Блогинг. Слово «блог» появляется в 97 году, и это сокращение от «веб-блог», своего рода дневник, который можно разместить в сети. И блоги стали появляться в 2003 году. Facebook. 2004 год. Он не существовал постоянно, как вы понимаете, появился в 2004 году. YouTube 2005, Twitter 2006. Многие ли из вас пользуются Твиттером? Вижу, пару человек поднял руки. Читайте твиты других людей. Да, вижу, немногие пользуются Твиттером. Facebook? Да, многие кивают. Все пользуются Фейсбуком. И это позволяет нам увидеть, как появление новых технологий влияет на язык и на появление новых разновидностей стилей языка.
Спасибо. Теперь. So that's the game master show you the example of how to interpret, and I think it was quite well done. Right, so quite fluently. And the good thing about it was that, for example, some words were not rendered exactly as they were said. Like, for example, you omitted the word brainwashed, but you said something else instead, right? Right. But exactly. But this shows that Milena was interpreting actually out of the broader context. She was not interpreting the words, but she was interpreting out of the broader context. That's exactly what we were doing here right now. We were trying to build the broader context in our minds. Therefore, we shall see how this bigger context that you had will help you, Rita, and you, Alla, interpret right now. Игра Das Glasperlenspiel, игра в бисер, очень помогает высвечиванию тех зон мозга, которые скрывают бесценную информацию и которые можно вытащить на поверхность и сделать нужными, полезными тебе во время твоей работы. Дома это можно делать, по сути дела, устраивая долгие, интересные, интеллектуальные вечера, когда только вы один, как гейм-мастер, знаете, о чем сюжет, и в конце, может быть, будет просмотр фильма какого-нибудь или просмотр какого-то интересного интервью, где присутствующие и так сами заранее смогли предсказать, о чем будет это интервью. Упражнение «Игра в бисер» неимоверно полезно для развития мозга и раскрытия его тайных способностей. Успеха в этом упражнении.
Each of these internet outputs that I've talked about has a distinctive English style. Oh, heck, it's not just English, a distinctive Serbian style too, a distinctive any language style. The style you use when you're texting is not the style you use when you're blogging.